It's cold, clammy, cold, English, misty, dark at noon, later than noon, 3 o'clock. Um, it's interesting to me how the media, in quotes, has become sort of like body cams on cops. It's a good thing that somebody filmed Elon Musk doing his salute. What it actually was really doesn't matter. It was on film to be endlessly spoken of. I'd like to know, though, did he do it because he was on camera? Presumably, his salute was cheered by some of us and reviled by most of us, I'm hoping. I'm not impressed by him either way, but this and other gestures, and he himself, are influential because the news records every move. And perhaps his every move is conditioned by this recording of his every move. So a long time ago in high school when I was 16, I had a row with a teacher who I hugely respected and loved appropriately. We had a test to do. I don't know why to this day, but I refused to do it. And she'd had enough. She and I had battled for a year, and she said, "You can't behave like this if you want to go to college." And to which I shouted, "Nancy," and she said it as if that was the last word, the showstopper. If you want to go to college, you can't behave that way if you want to go to college. Come on. And I shouted, "Nancy, I'm not going to college. I have no desire to go to college. I see no reason to go to college." Now, I was 16, so 1972. And I came from, and I had all the grades and everything. And I don't know why I had them. I don't recall doing homework, which means I must have done homework but didn't register it as onerous or difficult. But anyway, Nancy O'Connell, a great, great human being. To this day, I remember, I can see her in my mind's eye. She taught us social studies or Native American history in the school I was at. And then to this day, I was an arrogant brat, but I was something else with it, which I didn't understand, and apparently nobody else did either. A decade later, I was in a rehearsal for Hamlet. I was playing Five Things in a marvelous production. I was 26 or 25 and young at it, and surrounded by these fabulous, lovely actors, being directed by the chap who ran my drama school, who was also hugely influential human being. There was a pause in the rehearsal for the Equity deputy to take a vote. We're all members of Equity. That's the system in Britain, or was in those days. To take a vote on a strike, to go on strike in September for a £10 a week rise or raise in rep actors' wages. I think at this point I'd done a couple of rep seasons, which again were glorious, and compared to the American system, they were very well paid, etc. And so the idea, I think, was that there would be everybody in favor say aye or raise your hand, and I think that the idea was that everybody in the room would raise their hands, and then we get back to Hamlet. And I had no reason to not raise my hand. I was just, all I said was, hang on, just a minute, because I was stupid. I said, is the implication here that the artistic directors of repertory theaters all over Britain. As I say, one or two I'd already worked at, are twirling their moustaches and pocketing £10 a week per actor at the moment. Isn't it likely that the outcome of this will be that instead of us doing Hamlet with 15 people, they'll do it with 2? Or they'll do, one-hander, as they call them, or two-handers, or whatever it is, just to make ends meet. So, and it wasn't, I did, yes, absolutely, we'll go on strike in September. By the way, when our contract was up, we were coming back from Yugoslavia in August, early August. So it wouldn't have affected us in that company anyway. So I believe that the money must have gone up, and I believe that the vote was really not against the artistic directors of the repertory theatres, but it was demanding that the government give them more money to give to us. None of this is really the point. The point is that there was a presumption about my going to college, a presumption about my unquestioning acceptance of an order from on high from my union Equity, and there was nothing. I wasn't brave. It was nothing to do with it. I was literally like, in both cases, I wanted to know why. I'd already answered my own questions about college, which I can go into in another thing. But the point was, so anyway, the point was, I was just saying, look, I don't understand this. You're going to have to explain this to me. So I've been watching these nomination hearings, and we've got the new Trump administration coming in and doing his draconian best. I am totally aware of all that, but I'm watching these hearings, and I'm watching these Democratic senators and Republican senators, but mostly Democratic senators this time around. If this was a new Democratic administration, if this was a new Democratic administration, then the Republicans would be doing this thing that looks, to all intents and purposes, like HUAC. It looks to me like Bernie Sanders or whoever is about to get up and say to whoever, to the nominee, are you or have you ever been a member of the Communist Party? That is the tone in which it is conducted. And it has nothing to do with what I agree or disagree with. It's the fact that the process is repugnant. I want to know why. The presumption and frankly the treatment of Tulsi Gabbard and RFK, two people for whom I find some sympathy. I probably disagree with all kinds of things that they actually think, though I do think that Snowden is actually a heroic figure, whistleblower, and all kinds of Republicans and Democrats are upset with Tulsi Gabbard for not saying that. In other words, not demonizing, So the big picture is that we belong to a team, shall we say, a race, a nationality, a community of like-minded people, and our defining, unifying essence is the abuse, disdain, and demonization of an other. I was hinting at that with the rep theater directors. I don't know what I was hinting at with the college thing. Just that was very, very important to me. I mean, obviously it's a hugely important decision, So it wasn't. It didn't feel important to me. It just felt existential, I think is the best word. It felt at 15, because I'd made my decision at 15. My decision was self-defining. And again, there was no dogma. There was no real. I didn't think college was a terrible thing. I have thought so since. Not always, but I'm surrounded by people who went to college, mostly successfully, and for the life of me, I can't really ascertain what it is that they're supposed to have gained in almost anything except status. But at the time, that was not the issue. The issue was I had many other things that I was deeply interested in, things that I wanted to embrace and go forth and discover, and that had little to do with academia, for sure. And it's interesting, it touches tangentially on this idea of work. Because I remember going to work at very young, 15, 16, working in a local Chinese takeout and then working at Elsie's Deli in Harvard Square. And I loved it. I just loved working. And it wasn't because the actual work itself necessarily, but it was being out, it was being in the world, being with the community, encountering all these different kinds of people. And in Elsie's Deli, you would do that. That was the draw, because that was what was important. And time spent away pondering and studying and doing all those kinds of things at that point in my life was really unappealing. Yeah, it's a thing about that I'm exploring about what it means to belong and how the actual belonging becomes more important, or that you become, or it seems to me that people become more and more, I am my group. I am my group. So, going through this last election, I looked at the policies, the Biden policies. No minimum wage raise, was there, Joe? I looked at the fact that there was more oil and coal extraction under Biden than there had been under Trump and Obama. I looked at that fucking war. So at some point I had to go, well, this is not my team. And what I realized, they were never my team. I used to, in Britain, Labour Party is much more appealing than the Democratic Party on paper. The essential philosophy. So I think that was where my loyalty was there. But item by item, I'd say, I'm over here. What are you presenting to me that I agree with? And there was no fewer elements in the Republican, in the Democratic platform and achievement, no fewer values that reflected my values than there were in the Republican one. It doesn't stop me from understanding and acknowledging that what Trump is doing is ghastly. But the other team on my essentials was as ghastly. So that's all.